Could I have your attention, please? Thank you. Welcome to the Ward 1 debate. My name is Phil Bessling, and I'm your nominal host. First off, exits are marked behind me and at the back where you came in. Washrooms to my right. Water is available at the welcome table. A Better Grimsby is a group of citizens who came together and concluded that with myriad changes that are occurring in our community, the voters need an opportunity to hear their ward candidates, both incumbents and challengers. And this is what we've invited you to. As a group, we do not endorse anyone. Our role is strictly one of providing an opportunity to hear all views so that you can make an informed decision about who would best represent your interest and views at council. We have provided a sign-in sheet, which is optional, and which we would use to forward any information that you would wish. Each candidate has been sent the rules of procedure. The order of speaking has been drawn by lot, and closing remarks will be in reverse. This is the important part. Written questions will be taken from the floor and vetted by our panel. You have pad and paper spread around the room, and it's available to you. Raise your hand when you have a question ready to be picked up, and we will take it to the panel. The intent is not to censor your question, but to avoid repeats of the same question. And then we also ask that you treat all candidates with respect and that you maintain decorum at all times. And please hold your applause until completion of closing remarks. Our moderator is Ms. Delight Devoli. Our panelists are Tony Josie, Henry Dortman, and our timekeeper is Rob Hatton. And with that, I turn the floor over to Ms. Devoli.
Can you hear me? He's so much taller than I am. Good evening, everybody. And I live in Ward 1, so this is so special to see all of you here tonight. I feel like we are friends, neighbors, and comrades in helping democracy, flourish in our town. So thank you so much for coming out tonight. Before we actually begin, though, seeing this is the last of the debates, I know they didn't happen in numerical order, so Ward 1 is last. But by a show of hands, could you tell us how many of you are out tonight for the very first time? Awesome, that is so awesome, thank you. I'm going to start by reading something that I did the very first time, and Debbie Zimmerman, bless her dear heart, actually repeated it at each of the debates too, because she thought it was rather special too, and I do too. So pardon me if I do read it, because it was something that sort of came from the heart when I wrote it the first time. And I said that I believe that a democracy is built through open societies that share information. That when we share information, we become more knowledgeable, we become aware of the issues, and we become aware of the facts. And that when we have debate, we can find solutions together. So that's what we're going to do tonight, a debate. Not in an angry manner, as sometimes a debate is thought of, but rather to encourage many sides of the issues to come out and be discussed. From there, we hope you're going to find candidates that represent you with the solutions that you think will work. Or perhaps they'll just tell you that they don't know, and that's okay too, right? So think of the tone of this meeting as being what we would really like to see in our municipal chambers. We would like to see, the to and fro, the ideas surfacing, the consideration of the good and the bad, and that all the sides would come out. And so there really is no wrong answer. There is only our thoughts and our consideration that you will give to them. So thank you so much for coming out to spend the evening with us. The rules of the debate, as Phil said, were shared with our candidates earlier. They have actually drawn numbers of 1 to 4 out of a paper bag, And in order to help me, they are actually sitting in the order they drew them in. Because we're going to start with candidate 1, and then as each question, as we move on to the second, third question, and so on, we're going to give each of them an opportunity to be the first speaker and sort of move around. So whoever starts first tonight actually will be the last speaker at the end of the evening. Again, we welcome questions from the audience. Do pass them in, and if we have any specific questions that you have that are really for one of our candidates here, that's okay. Please direct the question to them, and we will sort of fall out of order and ask them that question. But we will also offer the other candidates an opportunity to respond too. So everybody gets a chance to speak, in other words. Before we begin, though, some of you may know the candidates, but let me introduce them to all of you. So on my immediate left, your right, Ralph Vitello. I think it's okay to clap for him. Cindy Aiken is next to him. Kevin Ritchie is sitting beside him. And Reg Frake is at the end. And it really is special. I think, it's very brave. I think it's very generous of them to really, put themselves out there and to stand for election, no matter what the results will be in a few weeks. We are going to now go back to our agenda, and we're going to give each candidate 2 minutes to actually make opening remarks. As we said, Rob is going to be the timekeeper, so when the 2 minutes will start, and he'll start timing that, but when you are at 30 seconds left, he's going to hold up a sign that says 30 seconds for the candidates. When you are at 15 seconds left, he's going to hold that up. And I think when you're at 0, some large man comes and does things too. We haven't had that problem yet. So we're going to start, though, with opening remarks and really ask Ralph to go ahead. And we're going to ask the candidates to use the mic down there.
Are we live? Can you hear me? Is this on? I don't think it's on.
Not on.
Very good. I think we're live now, thank you.
Yes. And speak directly into the mic as close.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ralph Vitello, and as you know, I'm a candidate for Alderman in Ward 1. I've lived in Grimsby for over 25 years. My wife Isabel and I have raised our sons in this amazing town. I've seen, I've heard, and I have listened. Now is the time for action. Bernard Shaw wrote, and I quote, "Some men see things as they are and ask why. Others dream things that never were and ask why not." I'm here for the same reasons you are. We need change at the town hall, and together we can make that happen. I run for office of Alderman of Ward 1, not to oppose those who seek the same office, but to bring forth new ideas and respecting all points of view, with integrity, accountability, transparency, and most importantly, adaptability. I ask that you have the courage to vote for change. We need a balanced approach towards development, transparency pertaining to the biodigester, creating employment opportunities within our community, transparency pertaining to the Livington expansion, protection of the wooded lot, strong leadership in working with Grimsby Downtown Development Area in conjunction with the Grimsby Chamber of Commerce to encourage business in the downtown core and to promote our town for future business growth. We need to open the books at Grimsby Hydro. Renewing our efforts to shape and reclaim our position in building a new hospital on the current Grimsby site. Grimsby and surrounding communities raised a substantial amount of funds while the money is still sitting awaiting strong leadership and to realize completion. We need to gain support of strong business partners to help us reach this goal. In Canada's best places to live, the town of Grimsby ranks 86 out of 417. Let us improve on that and let's work towards the top 50. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our time. This is our moment. In the next 48 months, this will shape the future of our town. Change is coming to Grimsby. Let us begin.
Thank you, Ralph. Cindy, if you'd like to take the mic.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out. And thank you to my opponents for presenting themselves also. I think it's vitally important to recognize that we have some amazing people standing up here, or sitting, and I'd like to recognize them. I'm Cindy Aiken. I'm running for Ward 1. I've got a little bit of a background I'd like to give you. I have a BA in Political Science, post-diploma in Regulatory Law Administration, but I have a very varied career background, which I think is vital for anyone running. I have worked at Queen's Park many, many years ago, pre-children, and I've also worked in the financial industry. I'm doing mortgages, loans, etc. I have actually done a stint as a flight attendant. That was very interesting and actually very challenging. All of these positions are vitally important because I dealt with people all the time. I dealt with customers that were very difficult and some that were very easy to get along with. I think that's vitally important, that you're able to listen to what people have to say, hear them, and come to a solution that works for everyone. I think that's vital for anybody running in this community, and that's why I put myself forward. I'm actually a very private person. This isn't something that's easy for me to do, but I think it's important that we have good people running, and I commend these men for running also, and I think it needs to be recognized that we need some changes in this area, and I think that it's possible. So I hope you vote for me. Thank you.
Kevin Ritchie.
Good evening. First, I'd like to thank Better Grimsby and the volunteers for putting this on this evening. I'd also like to thank my other fellow individuals here running for council and putting their name forward. I'd like to thank the people that's helped me get to where I am today, and I'd like to thank all of you for coming here this evening. I'm Kevin Ritchie, and running in Ward 1 like everybody else. Been a resident of Grimsby for the past 13 years. I'm a husband, a father, and a full-time firefighter. Been a husband for the last 7 years to my wife, Catherine, a father to my 2 young daughters, Elizabeth and Brianna. And over the past several years, I've been working on a degree in public administration and governance with a minor in law at Ryerson University. Having been a firefighter for 21 years, I understand the concepts of community service and earning public trust. And I promise to respect your issues and ideas and faithfully represent the citizens in Ward 1 in a thoughtful and professional manner. I will ask the hard questions and ensure that our tax dollars are used efficiently and effectively. Thanks.
And now, Reg Frake.
Good evening, and I too would like to thank my opponents for taking the time out to spend time here tonight to meet each other on a different level, other than out knocking on doors. And thank you all for coming, and thanks to Better Grimsby for putting this effort forward for all of us to say our thing about what we're doing and what we're trying to do. Anyways, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is not about me, it's about you. So I'm not going to bore you with my background and qualifications because I'm hoping you have read my flyers, my brochures, and visited my website. Over the past year, and especially over the past month, I have knocked on your doors. And I've spoken with thousands of residents in Ward 1 and in Grimsby. Although the reception from each person has been great, I must say that their concerns were greater. I don't think that anyone, or very few, have any idea how mucked up our town has become and will become no thanks to our irresponsible council, and that also includes certain members of Public Works, Planning and Development, and the Finance. So let me paint a short-term future of Grimsby as I see it. Over the next 4 years, about 6,000 to 8,000 more residents will occupy the new development areas, which unfortunately we cannot stop. That's a whopping 30% increase in population, which is way beyond Grimsby's current capabilities. These irresponsible developments were approved and then increased wholeheartedly by our council at the behest of big out-of-town developers. Unfortunately, very little ethics or intelligence was used. They allowed these developers to take over our town. We all hear the constant complaints from residents about the current traffic congestion downtown and along our main streets. Well, folks, it will get worse. Over the next few years, there will be 30% more traffic on our roads, and that does not include the overflow from neighboring communities and the QEW. Unfortunately, the current council have created a perfect storm. It is going to be a logistics nightmare. With the next council and with your support, we'll have to fix it. You have to vote for a new council with the right skills, determination, and a time to fix this mess. You and the people from Ward 1 and the people of Grimsby need to get out and vote. Only you can make the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Before the debate began tonight, they were given 2 questions in advance. We do give them a little bit of time to think about what these questions are and their answers. And the 2 questions, and I will share both those questions with all of us now. So the first question was, what are the 2 most important issues in Ward 1, and how do you propose to address them if you are elected? And the second question was, what are the 2 most important issues in the town of Grimsby overall, and how do you propose to address them if you are elected? So, in all fairness, we had Ralph go first. This time we would ask Cindy to take the podium, and let's begin only with question 1. So, what are the 2 most important issues in Ward 1, and how do you propose to address them if you are elected? Cindy, please.
Thank you. In Ward 1, there is actually an area called the Grimsby Beach, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And it's actually interesting what's happening there with a lot of the area. It's a very interesting area because the lots are almost overlapping each other. But there's also a character there that exists that I actually met with many of the community members of that area. And it's actually a microcosm of what's happening in Grimsby, where we're having people move in that are recognizing the special areas of Grimsby. So that is one area of our ward that I think needs to be not protected, but definitely has special features about it, that the only way that you can really address anything with it is to work with the people there. They live there, they understand what's going on, and they want to make sure that what happens there, they're all happy with also. And it's like any issue in Grimsby. It's a matter of speaking with the people involved and making sure everyone's on board, that we find a solution that works. It's not going to be perfect, but it's got to work for the majority of the people there. And the second issue in the ward area is obviously, and this is all of Grimsby actually, is the overdevelopment again. I mean, I think it's happening in every ward, and it's an issue that, the smart growth plan is actually, we've exceeded our requirements by the provincial government. There's no need to create or have more intensification. It's something that we need to address, and we need to work with the provincial government, but also communicate with the developers that, Grimsby's not open for overdevelopment anymore, and it's got to be a strong point that we all stand behind. Thank you.
Kevin, please. The 2 most important issues in Ward 1.
So the two most important issues that I hear in Ward 1, the first I say is transparency. So whether it be the biodigester, even more of a specific example is the medical marijuana grow up that was put on the South Service Road. Our current council, I don't know, and I believe they put an ad in the paper, but in order to approve this medical marijuana grow up, the provincial standard states 150 meters, and it was told it was 80 meters. For transparency for me, I think everybody in that neighborhood should have heard and had an opportunity to speak for or against it, and this wasn't the case. So with transparency, I believe that's a huge issue. And the second one is accountability. Again, talking to the residents of our ward, whether it's not cleaning up the beaches area with trees and so forth, when they're doing tours through there, multiple residents complaining about children's safety with sidewalks, stop signs, speed, so forth. Nothing's been done. In Ward 1, if you don't have a connection to somebody, one of the individuals that were there, it seemed like your voice is not heard.
Thank you, Kevin. And now to Reg.
You ready, Rob?
I'm ready.
It's an important job. Okay. The two most important issues facing Ward 1, based on the consensus given to me by the very residents of Ward 1, are first, the enforcement of our bylaws, and second, the safety of our streets, or on our streets. The enforcement of bylaws in general included illegal parking, especially on lanes, in bike lanes, illegal parking on snow routes, illegal parking near mailboxes, as well as illegal dumping, illegal structures being built in backyards, and untidy neighbors, to name a few. What's the point in having all those bylaws if we don't enforce them? The solution is very simple. We need to review the enforcement of every bylaw and establish appropriate big fat so he's doing me off. Big fat penalties. Hire and train more dedicated enforcement officers and give them a clear mandate to manage all residents' complaints within a reasonable time frame. And to spare the residents from paying more taxes for this service, we could contract a third-party company with the town sharing in any revenues. Niagara-on-the-Lake is a good example of this program. Number two, the safety on our streets in general, and especially around our playgrounds and parks and near schools. For example, we have to stop the speeding on longer streets such as Dorchester, Lake, Main, Baker, Central, Tomahawk, Bell Harbor, and a few others. One of the biggest complaints from residents was the safety of their children. They have complained so many times to their alderman without any satisfaction. This can be fixed. There's a solution. It's not rocket science. Surely the council is aware of the recent inventions in the past 100 years called traffic lights. How about some traffic calming? Flashing stop signs, speed bumps, lower speed limits, flashing crosswalks, brightly painted pedestrian crossings, and maybe a few of those European roundabouts. Finally, we also need to employ more full-time policing on our major streets and roads. We have to lobby the region for a full-time police unit. Thanks.
Thank you, Ralph.
Well, I have to say, Delight, you're 100% correct. Tonight is not a debate, it's more of a conversation of agreement. I agree with all those points, and I think we're all going to agree with each other. I've heard so many things knocking on the doors of our ward. Simply put, speed on our roads, traffic coming off the highway, safety of our public parks, simple conversations with people knocking on their door saying they can't even bring their grandchildren to the parks because they haven't been fixed. They're not safe. They're falling apart. Swings are broken. There's rust on the equipment that the children need to play with. Enforcement of bylaws where people are bringing their dogs to parks and they're not picking up what's left behind. These are the most simplest things. We have major issues in our town, yes, but the most simplest things that can be fixed. And I hear it. We call and ask and we get no callbacks, or we get no response, or someone's coming and no one never comes. That's been a constant and persistent response to when I ask, why haven't you had this addressed? Nobody comes and nobody calls back. Residents feel that there is no representation, and that's exactly what there is, no representation. Taxation. Residents feel that they're paying taxes and that it's increasing disproportionately based on the amenities provided. Those examples that I'm giving. Simply bringing their children, their grandchildren to a park where they can be safe and they can enjoy time with their families. Seniors, the most common concern was transit. Residents without vehicles are unable to leave their homes due to the lack of internal transit within our town of Grimsby. This is a difficult topic, and I do realize it needs in-depth conversation. We may not have the tax dollars for this, but we have to find a way to be able to move our people from one end of the town to the other. Transparency. Residents feel they're on a need-to-know basis, with decisions being a foregone conclusion when an announcement is made. Perfect example, Kevin, I agree. I knocked on doors and people were upset. The medical marijuana facility for them, wow, they're driving by and they're seeing a building going up. They think it's a produce house. No, it's not a produce house. So these are the things that we need to address. Thank you.
The second question that we gave each of the candidates was to ask them to speak to you tonight about the two most important issues in the town of Grimsby overall, and how they would propose to address them if they were elected to council. And given that we started with Cindy last, this time we're going to lead off with Kevin.
So the two most important issues, well, the first one's obviously intensification. I've knocked on every single door in our ward. I've talked to hundreds of people. Two individuals, two separate houses, are the only ones that like what's happening in the West End for the intensification. To me, it's irresponsible and it needs to be slowed right down, even if stopped right now. We need to plan properly, and growth will happen, but it needs to be responsible growth. The second thing that I continuously hear is our hospital. Unfortunately, there's no short-term answer for our hospital, but when successful, I will be a champion to bring our hospital to this town. And one other issue, I thought this issue had died at the last election, which is the woodlot. I supported the woodlot then, and I support the woodlot now. Thank you.
Ed?
Very fast, eh? You don't get his time.
Oh,
Share time? Oh, come on. They pay a deal.
no sharing time amongst the
You made it feel like it
candidates.
is leftover time. That's not fair.
Anyways, okay. I've thought really long and hard about this question, and there were many issues. But in my mind, the most important issue facing Grimsby future right now, quite honestly, and without any doubt, is this election. It's probably the most important election that Grimsby has ever had. We want major change, and we all want responsible management of our town. So if the people of Grimsby don't get out and vote for a sweeping change in this election, then I fear we will be facing a very dismal future. A new like-minded council is a major concern. Otherwise, the future of Grimsby will be no different than the past. My second issue is governance. Look back there. In past years, we've seen unjustifiable tax increases above inflation, poor judgment and decisions on development, mismanagement of our budgeting process, non-disclosure of our hydro companies. The finances of the biodigester and the sale of the broadband network is still a mystery, and the list goes on. And let's not forget the arrogance and disrespect for taxpayers who attend the meetings. And delight, no smiling. The solution, first let's elect a new like-minded council. Pick two of us tonight, who will adopt the rules of good governance in all aspects of the town's business. I'm talking about code of conduct, inclusion, fiscal responsibility, communication, general respect for all residents, and let's not forget transparency, accountability, and integrity. I'd like to refer to the debate of 2 nights ago, when one of the two candidates for mayor said that transparency, accountability, and integrity were just words. I'm sorry, they're more than that. They mean everything. I suggest that the next council take all of those things that are posted back there, sign up document and say they will adhere to every single one of them, sign them and pin them on the wall at the town council. Thank you.
Just to agree with Reg on that last point, on every board that I've served on, I'm the current president of the Stony Creek Chamber of Commerce. Every individual that serves on our board signs a commitment letter to transparency, to privacy, in a sense of it's our responsibility to discuss our meetings with everyone. It's our responsibility to communicate with the people that we're representing and allow them to know what we're doing every day. Privacy is basically not existent when you're working and representing the people of your town. The doors that I knocked on, I had so many different responses to the town issues. The major ones, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, we're all saying the same thing. It's about measuring twice and cutting once. We're not doing that. We're making decisions off the cuff. We don't have a balanced approach towards development and construction. We don't have strong leadership when it comes to working with the downtown development area in conjunction with the Grimsby Chamber of Commerce to encourage business in the downtown core and improving our future businesses, allowing them to prosper and grow and give them the opportunity to flourish and enable us to be there to help them. We need to do that. If we want a vibrant town, we need a vibrant downtown. And we need to bring businesses because we need to have the tax base so we don't have to come and ask you for a tax increase when it's not justified. Renewing our efforts to reshape and reclaim our position in the building of a new hospital on the current Grimsby site. Grimsby and surrounding communities, as I mentioned earlier, we need strong leadership to get this done. We need to make strong public partners and have the willingness to succeed. If we work together, there is absolutely nothing that we cannot accomplish. Thank you.
I'm going to feel a little bit like a broken record here, but definitely overdevelopment. I mean, we're all aware of it. We're all feeling it. It's affecting everything. It's affecting traffic. It's affecting the bylaws. It's affecting the trees. Grimsby, I think many people live in Grimsby because it's beautiful. We're surrounded by the escarpment, by the lake. It's a stunning place to live, but we need to protect it, and which leads me into my second point, which is the hospital corridor, which is the other area that they're going to try and develop. And, if there's one thing I've learned, it's that obviously, making sure you do your research on any issue is vitally important. And I look at these two items and I realize that I think about New York City and I think about Central Park and I think about the developers that would have loved to have done something to Central Park. And they had the forethought to protect that area. And I'm sure there were many that fought it, for it developing, and it's still to this day protected. We have a beautiful town here. We need to protect it. And we have the voices to do that. We are the grassroots. And I worked in provincial government, and I remember working for my MPP, and if she got so many calls about one specific issue, she was jumping on it, and she was going to her council, her meetings, and she was voicing her concerns. We have the strength in numbers, but we have to work together. I think that's vital. This overdevelopment needs to stop, and we have the voice to do that. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of what I think of as phase one. Basically, the candidates had an opportunity to answer 2 questions that they were able to give some thought to ahead of time. Now is really the part that I rather do enjoy. I will tell you that this next part really came about at the very first debate, and since then, of course, I think we have tried to fine-tune it somewhat too. But so when I say fine-tune it, we basically call this the rapid-fire section, the rapid-fire questions, We're going to ask the candidates a question. They give us a yes or a no, and if they really would like to add something to it, they will be given 15 seconds to add, perhaps a maybe or a qualified answer, or to support their yes or no.
Thanks, Henry.
Yeah, that was a test. I think what we're going to do is move the mic closer to them so they can just pass it, and instead of feeling like Wyerton Willie popping out of the hole each time there.
Jesus.
While they're getting that set up, if any of you have been writing down your questions, please do. And put up your hand. Someone will come along to collect them, and they'll go to the question panel here and sort through them. So that will be phase 3 of the meeting.
Do you have data? Or you're not data?
Okay.
Okay, well, I just can't see.
It doesn't really matter where we start, but whatever we are going to do, we're not going to quite, it's going to be a little hard to pass the mic and to go from Reg all the way to Ralph. So I think we'll start with Reg, and then we'll go pass it to your right. Then when we get all the way, that'll be question 1, then question 2, we'll start with Ralph, and we'll just go back and forth that way, I think. So question 1, and again, you have 15 seconds sort of to give a yes or no with any additional comments, but we have to get the timekeeper sitting down in time.
We can count to 15.
We can count to 15, that's good.
You'll also about 20 seconds right now.
Okay. Question number 1 is, would you support the release of the financial statements of every company in the town-owned hydro group to the public?
I wonder what I'm going to say. Yes, of course, absolutely, and the sooner the better, and I hope that we can find out within the next 2 months, maybe. But yes, absolutely.
The answer is yes. I believe the residents of Grimsby own those companies and they deserve to know.
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely yes. And furthermore, the release of all financial statements to including all subsidiary companies related to Grimsby Hydro. Yes.
Just keep the mic there, because we're going to start with the second question with you, Ralph. If elected, will you honor the town's official plan and not allow higher and more dense construction through the bonusing provisions of the official plan?
I'm totally 100% against bonusing. I think bonusing creates an issue. I think it creates a opportunity for individuals. I'm not going to say they're going to act in an improper manner, but absolutely, I would not allow any type of bonusing structure available in anything to do with any kind of construction in Grimsby. Totally against bonusing.
If you can pass it to Cindy now, we'll just go back and forth.
I'm also against bonusing. I don't understand how it's even happening, but yes, I'm against it.
My answer is also that I would honor the official plan. I think if, when successful, we will put a halt to the official plan to make the amendments so there is no bonusing.
Not much I can add to that. I totally agree. Bonusing should never have happened. It's kind of a form of bribe. And we should probably roll back that as much as we possibly can. And yes, I think we should stick with the official plan and not change.
Okay. I realize it's probably not fair to each of you because I keep going back and forth. So if you want, I can switch up, but if you're okay, Reg, we'll have you start with the next, answering the next question. Would you support implementing a process and a system to improve town staff's service to the public? And by that, they gave me some examples here. For example, we could measure the number of resident requests, the response times, the resident satisfaction levels, something along those lines.
If they're not doing it now, they should be. And so I totally agree, yes. I think every single job within the town council, from the lowest level to the highest level, should be measured. And there should be a service record And there should be very high goals and service levels set for each one of them. And they should be measured not only once a year, but I think quarterly, and published to the public so they can see it.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yes, I fully support that, and I think we need to get to the root cause as why some of these things aren't happening. So maybe a full 360 review from the top down, bottom up, see why maybe some of these things aren't happening, as maybe there's some roadblocks that we're not aware of.
Cindy?
Yes, I agree also. I think, again, it's a matter of communicating well with everyone also. So yeah, I definitely agree.
Thank you. Yes, I also concur with all three of my friends here. We're all on the same page there. You know, I'm going to speak really loose here. For goodness sake, you go to McDonald's and they ask you, how was your meal? The last thing that you should be thinking about is not getting service from the town of Grimsby. If you put a request in, it should be responded in a diligent fashion. If there's an issue happening and it's not taken care of right away, it's absolutely not satisfactory to have that happening. And 100% yes, I support implementing a system for full transparency and turnaround time for people that have requests.
Thank you, Ralph. Question number 4 has been in the news a bit, so we're going to ask each of you this question, starting with Ralph this time. Should the biodigester, the property that the biodigester is on in that company, be charged property taxes?
I think the biodigester situation is unfortunate. Things happen when you make decisions, but they should be paying taxes just like the rest of us are. And it should be held at its own merit. It should have to operate with the same expense levels that every business has. Not paying taxes to the town of Grimsby is not right. And if we need to look at the biodigester situation, it's okay to make a decision as council. It's okay to make a mistake. But it's not okay not to own up to it and have a discussion, have foreclosure. So they should be paying taxes 100%.
Thank you, Ralph. Moving on to Cindy. Should the biodigester, or the company that owns the biodigester property, be charged property taxes?
Absolutely, yes. We all pay property taxes, and this should absolutely include the biodigester. I'm not sure how we got to where we are with the biodigester at this point, but it definitely needs to be looked into seriously and addressed. Thank you.
Kevin?
Yes, I believe the biodigester should be paying their taxes. As our current council says, it's a private company. I don't believe that. I believe it's a public company. But if it's a private company, for profit, how do they get a tax exemption? I know I'm filling my application out right now for my private residence for a tax exemption too.
Reg?
Thank you. Absolutely, they should pay property taxes. The council can have it both ways. It was a public company, or is it a private company? Now they want it to be a private company, so it has to pay taxes. If not, maybe we should offer the free property taxes to every private company in Grimsby, maybe. How about that? But anyways, when we steal those property taxes, we're also stealing from the school taxes, and we're also stealing from the region as well. So it's a three-edged sword, if it could be that.
Thank you. Question number 5. Would you support...
Start with Kevin.
Would you like me to? Sure, we could do that. So Kevin, if we start with you, then I'm going to say that we'll go from you to Cindy to Ralph, and then we'll circle around to Reg. And that way the two of you will be at the leading edge of the answers, and the other two at the end. Question number 5 is, would you support the extension of Livingston Avenue to go through the Greenbelt area that is now known as the Irish Grove Woodlot? Would you support the extension of Livingston Avenue going through the Irish Grove Woodlot?
So no, I do not support the extension of Livingston Avenue. I went to a meeting at Casablanca Winery and Inn to look at the plans, and I believe widening Highway 8 and widening the South Service Road is the appropriate thing to do. It would save the woodlot, and like I said, that's what I believe we should be doing.
Cindy?
No, I would not support the Livingston Avenue extension, and it goes back to my whole point about protecting what we have so far, and if, like I said, if New York City can do a Central Park, then we should be able to do it with a tiny little woodlot grove. Thank you.
Ralph?
I want you to guess what my answer is. The answer is obviously no. Obviously, we shouldn't even be having that conversation. First of all, it's protected. I don't know why we even spent money on looking into maybe putting a road or a walkway in or whatever they were talking about the other day. We have to protect the wooded lot. And there's other alternatives. We have different alternatives. I think that's what we need to do. So my answer is no.
And Reg?
And now you have to guess what my answer is going to be. No, I would not support the Livingston Road extension, and to do that they would have to go through the woodlot, and we need to protect the woodlot. It's a special piece of property. It has a lot of meaning for Grimsby, and there's a lot of wildlife there. There's a lot of indigenous trees and shrubs and so on, so we need to protect that. That's really, really important. So no, I would not support that extension.
Thank you. We're going to end that part of the rapid fire questions now because we have quite a number of questions that you've all been handing in. Thank you so much. And we really want to get to all of your questions. So someone has their hand up there. And this time, I guess, in all fairness to everybody, we've had just about everybody starting. Where's the mic there? Close to Cindy. We'll start with you, Cindy. So the first question that we received from the audience.
How much time do we want to give them?
Oh, pardon me, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so when we do ask these questions, each of the candidates before us today has 1 minute to answer the question. So starting with Cindy, and then we'll go to Kevin, Reg, and swing around to Ralph. So the first question from the audience is, will you fix the park on Cindy Court and add new equipment?
I think one of the first things as a representative for a specific ward is absolutely to address any issues any of the constituents have. Absolutely, I will help and involve myself in any way in fixing the park, for sure.
Kevin?
I chuckled a little bit there because as I was campaigning in the month of August, I brought my 2 daughters with me to a few houses. And every time we campaigned in an area, we visited a park. Well, not just Cindy Avenue needs to be fixed, but a lot of our parks need to be fixed.
Interesting that it's called Cindy Park. You have anything to do with that? Yes, I think we should upgrade every one of the parks we have in Grimsby, especially that one. I think that we should have up-to-date equipment for the kids to play on, and I think we should continue to service it as we need to ongoing. So yes, I'd certainly support that.
Ralph?
My answer is yes, and if I'm elected as Alderman of Ward 1, one of the very first things that I would do is I would do a full audit of all parks within our ward. And then once I completed that, I will probably do one for the entire town of Grimsby. Because if I knocked on all these doors and I'm gonna say 1 of every 3 people mentioned to me how unhappy they are with the fact that our parks are not being serviced and they're not safe for our children, our grandchildren to play in, a full audit would be conducted under my aldermanship in Ward 1.
Thank you. Question number 2, and now, so we started this last time with Cindy, we'll start with Kevin. Will you fix the Lake Street speed problems and turn Lake Street into a boulevard? And maybe that's really 2 questions built into one. Will you fix the Lake Street speed problems? And then part 2 is, would you consider turning Lake Street into a boulevard?
So we'll look at the speed problem first. Interesting enough, a section of Lake Street in our ward has some speed bumps. I find it very interesting that it's just a certain, certain sections, certain people live there, and I was told that the accidents for those speed bumps reduced from 6 a year to 1. So speed, yes, we do need to slow everything down on that street. We have many reasons to do, schools in that area, all the rest. Now, as far as the boulevard, to be honest, I can't really answer that question without doing a full study. We would have to look at the impact that would have. I know it's very unfortunate when an accident happens on the highway and our side streets and the roads all get clogged up, but you know, we have to be a little more responsible, and we have to look and see if it's plausible or even something.
Interesting question, because when I canvassed on Lake Street, the people in Lake Street did not want Lake Street to become a boulevard, and because it's a residential street, I tend to agree with them. I don't think I would endorse that. However, there is a lot of speeding on Lake Street in spite of the bumps in some areas, and as I noted in my opening statements, that yes, we need to probably put some speed bumps in other places on Lake Street. And there's one particular speed bump, I think it's called the Berry Bump. And I think that one needs to be kind of cut back a little bit.
Ralph?
We turned off the mic. Cut me off.
He silenced
Well, he
you.
knew I was pretty much going to say almost the same thing, but with respect to Lake Street speed issues, so I too have spoken to residents on that street, and they have so many different concerns, and one of them hasn't been mentioned. Speed is an issue, and it's been an issue there for a long time. The residents there are kind of worried that a lot of people that are not familiar with Lake Avenue, when they're flying down that road, they sit on their veranda and watch people hit that speed bump, and they're worried they're going to lose control of their car and smash right through their house. I heard that about 2 or 3 times canvassing on Lake Avenue. So we need to find a way, we need to have a discussion on how we can control the speed on Lake Avenue. I'm not sure if a boulevard is a good idea until we do a little research. Again, that's spending town money on something that we need to research, and I don't think we should do that right away. We can consider it, but we need to research it. But speed is a serious issue on Lake Avenue, and let's hope that we can get that resolved before something happens to somebody driving down that road, especially people that are not familiar with the town of Grimsby and Lake Avenue.
Thank you.
I think we've hit on a bigger issue here also, is that obviously with more traffic comes more speed in all of Grimsby. I think this also brings about the fact that we don't have enough police presence in Grimsby, and we have grown significantly, and our police presence hasn't grown significantly. So there's that, I mean, and that's dealing with the region, addressing it with the region, getting somehow more police presence in Grimsby. And in specific areas where there is a lot of speeding, you know, definitely a police presence would help with that. The boulevard, I really don't know much whether that would be a good idea or not, because then we're just pushing the traffic to somewhere else and raising the ire of another neighborhood, which I don't think is conducive to living in a town that, you know, we all want to work together. So, but you know, I can definitely look into. I never even thought of that, to be honest with you. So it's something I can definitely look into further. Thank you.
Thank you. I wish I had written this next question. And it starts like this, and so we will be starting with Kevin this time. If you look around the room, it is painfully obvious that the age demographic is not very inclusive of young voters. Did I say that? How would you encourage or engage younger voters? Would you like me to read it again, or are we okay? We're going to start with Kevin there.
Well, in all honesty, it's very difficult to engage the younger crowds. They seem to be very busy and so forth, but one of the ways that I do believe that we can engage the younger voters is education. So I was once taught that don't wish for what you want right now. Wish for what you want as you get older, as that is something, when it happens, that is the most beneficial to the most amount of people. So you need to be farsighted, and you need to educate people so that you can have a plan that lasts for a long time. So with the younger generations, like I said, I believe they have lots of thoughts and ideas. They have great ideas, but maybe they also don't feel like they're being heard. So we need to listen, and not just listen to them, but listen to everybody, and then create a long-term vision, something that they could be a part of. Well, and something that they could take for ownership as well.
Yes, I do believe that we need to include the young people a little more, get them more involved in the community. And I think the place to do that is probably at the school level. I believe it would be a great idea for council to dedicate maybe a day a month to go to each of the schools, maybe and talk to the high school classes and tell them about municipal government. Tell them what it's all about, because I tell you, even most of the older people don't know what municipal government is all about. They think it's a party government. It's not. So I think we need to teach the young people at the high school level, and I think it's incumbent on councillors to maybe even go to the schools one day a month and show them what it's all about, and even show them what voting is all about. It's so important to have a vote, and when you get to be 18 years old, I think it's time to go out there and put that vote out there. So I think the schools is the key to that question.
Thank you. Ralph?
Thank you. Younger voters, when I knocked on their doors and I told them who I was, they said, "Oh, my parents are not home." So I asked them, I said, "Have they ever participated in a municipal election before?" And I asked them, "Do you know who your aldermen are?" And they had no clue. Quite frankly, their parents didn't know who their aldermen were. In saying that, I do believe that we need to engage the younger generation, because truthfully, I think we underestimate their knowledge and their strengths and what they want. I think the younger generation is fully engaged in the political process. I think that they understand what's happening, but I think that what's happened to younger voters, and it's happening to a lot of us older voters, is that they've been so disenfranchised with politicians at all levels, whether it's federal, whether it's municipal, whether it's provincial, it doesn't matter. At election time comes around, they're given a laundry list of promises that seem never to be fulfilled. So we need to have true elections in a sense that we hold elected officials accountable to their word. Secondly, I think we can engage younger voters by what they know best. Electronics, Instagram, Facebook. I think we need to engage them in that way. And I do think that the schools are doing a pretty good job, Reg. I think they can do better though. I know that Blessed Trinity High School, they had mock elections, and all the children participated, and they were pretty engaged, and they knew the issues. So I think that would be the best way to go.
Thank you. Cindy?
This is one of the issues that I actually was going to speak about. I think the youth in Grimsby are kind of invisible, and I think part of the reason is because there's nothing for the youth to do in Grimsby. If you don't play hockey, there's not a lot that's devoted to these kids, and I think we need to recognize that. They're not, the majority of them aren't voting age, so they kind of get lost in the whole spectrum of this area. I think we can do better. I really do. And there's not even a movie theater. There's nothing, I'm not saying like there's Windward Park, which is, if you're into sports, that's fantastic. But for kids that aren't involved in any kind of leagues or anything like that, we're losing them, and we're losing them quickly. And we need to do something about that. I really, really feel strongly about that. And that plays a part in getting them involved in a lot of different areas so that they can feel more important, and then maybe come out and learn about voting and everything in the election. Thank you.
Thank you. This last round we started with Kevin on, and this particular time we'll now start with Reg. So we're going to keep to sort of the what we might think of as the recreational theme. I think that was a great lead in there, Cindy. What would you do, Reg, to increase cycling in Grimsby, but most importantly, safe cycling?
Grimsby is certainly a very popular town for cyclists. I see them all the time, but however, there's the only cycle lanes I'm aware of is Lake Street and part of Main Street. There might be a few others, but I'm not aware of them. And they don't really link together. I think that we should be promoting certainly a lot more continuous bike lanes and also some bike traffic lanes down beside the lake as well. There was a study done by a group a number of years ago about putting a bike trail along the railway tracks. I thought that was a pretty good idea. And I think we should probably look at that a little more and maybe study it, and because that will give bikers a safe place to cycle and a continuous road through Grimsby and into the other communities on either side. So I think that's something we should look at. I'm sure there's lots of other ideas, but that would be a start.
Thank you. Ralph?
So bike lanes, I do believe that we need to have some bike lanes. But if I'm elected as Alderman in Ward 1, I'm not going to put bike lanes all over town. And I'll tell you why. I think at some point there is a safety issue with respect to large groups of individuals cycling down Highway 8, going up and down Mountain Avenue, coming up and down Park. We need to have designated areas in which individuals want to cycle, especially if they're cycling in large groups. There's been many occasions where I think there's just been so many times that we've averted some pretty serious accidents in our town. I'm not saying I'm against bike lanes. I think we need to do a study. I think we need to figure out what the best places are in town for bike lanes. I did hear along the railroad track that would be something that should be considered, and I know there was a study done on that. The only problem with those bike lanes along the railroad tracks is that the people come to town of Grimsby to ride their bikes up and down our mountains, and that's why they ride their bikes. So we have to figure out what we can do. It's a difficult answer for the four of us. I think we're doing our best to answer that question. I think the town of Grimsby has been asked that question many times, and I think the answer to that response was zero.
Cindy?
My husband and I are actually avid cyclists. We road bike and we also mountain bike. It's a pastime that we quite enjoy. I think one of the first things is Highway 8 in Grimsby is ridiculous to bike on. It is full of potholes. It is disgusting that our road is that bad. That needs to be addressed with the region, but that's a whole nother ballgame. I support bike lanes. I think it's a great idea. I think that if we're going to, especially Highway 8, they obviously need to fix it. Let's widen it and put in some bike lanes. I think, I also like the idea of having them beside the railway track. I think that's a great idea. Again, it's a cost thing. We have to look at whether it's cost effective or not. Thank you.
Kevin?
So I'm going to look at cycling in two forms. One for the adult. First of all, a lot of our main roads, some of them are regional roads, but a lot of the main roads have space. And the unfortunate thing is the condition of the roads, which is forcing the cyclist to come closer to the middle, which is causing these accidents, or not accidents, but potential accidents. So the first thing we need to do with that is fix our roads. Put pressure on the region, have them fix it, fix theirs, and we can fix ours simply by just widening them a little bit and giving them the space. Now the second part I'm going to look at is for our children. And now they may not be cycling on the roads, but we need to make sure that there's some sidewalks and things away from the roads so they can also enjoy their bikes. I mean, I live just off of Park Road. There's bus stops there, no sidewalks. My kids go to St. John's at the end of the road there. I know it's a regional road, the sidewalk ends. They can't even enjoy riding their bikes. So we need to just take a few safety measures, such as some sidewalks for the kids and widening of the roads. That's what we need to do.
We're going to go to the next question. Registering first, though.
No, you're up, Reg.
You were up last time. Pardon me. So you will be the next one.
Me?
No, sorry, you were the first one to start, so Ralph will be the next one to start, right?
Can I
And
just
if
say
you would
something
like to
really
take
quick
some
about
time-
those bike lanes? I agree with you, Kevin, that the roads need to be fixed. But the problem is not so much the individual rider on their bikes, because I am for bike lanes. What I think we need to understand is that when you have these multiple riders, and sometimes they're 10, 15, 20 deep going up and down our main roads, it's a problem.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. We're going to move on to the next question now, and we're actually going to start with Ralph. Is it possible, and both the questions coming are traffic-related questions, so I'm going to ask you to restrict your answer to 30 seconds because we want to move through both of these. So the first question, is it possible to have either traffic lights or failing that, a four-way stop at the corner of Bartlett and Lake Street? And the comment following that said, there's going to be a very bad accident there one day.
That's a very good question. My wife and I talk about that all the time because I live on Tomahawk Drive. And the traffic that comes up and down Bartlett Avenue is obviously increased. We all know that. I think we need to do something at that intersection, a four-way stop, flashing lights, because that is also another area of individuals that are dragging down with their vehicles. So we need to have something there to stop that. It's become a little bit of a raceway for younger drivers and their vehicles. So I am for some type of four-way stop.
Okay,
Or
thank you, Ralph.
Thank you.
Cindy, is it possible, would you support either traffic lights, a four-way stop, or something at the corner of Bartlett and Lake?
Yes, definitely. My parents actually live right around the corner from there, so I'm quite familiar with that area. And I think, I mean, obviously we could do a study to make sure, but I think a four-way stop would work. But it's an area that definitely needs something.
Kevin?
So one of the previous questions was speed on Lake Street. So yeah, I think we should be doing something. I think it's time that we listen to our residents. It's the second question tonight with speed there. So traffic lights or stop signs is definitely something we should be looking at.
Reg?
I think we should all take a trip over to Europe and see some roundabouts. I think that's a perfect location for a great roundabout because roundabouts solve the problem that keeps the traffic flowing. You don't have to stop when you don't have to stop at a red light when there's no traffic. It slows people down. It actually answers all the questions and supplies all the good reasons to do that. But I think a roundabout is the answer to that, quite honestly. And the one over beside Beamsville is a proof that it works.
Thank you. This time we're going to start with Cindy. And again, it is still a traffic type question. So Clark and Ontario Street, where the fire hall is, there are no lights. There have been fatalities there and a number of deaths, major injuries. And so the question is a given, I guess. How many deaths or major injuries are required before lights or something is placed at Clark Street and Ontario Street? I don't think we really expect you to answer how many deaths or injuries you expect, but your comments on the lights or some solution for Clark Street and Ontario Street.
Again, I know this area personally because my parents were involved in an accident there. It is a dangerous area, and the more traffic we have, the worse it's becoming. Especially when the highways close. For some reason, people they just don't see the cars coming. Something needs to be done there, absolutely, positively something needs to be done there, and the study needs to be done. Yes, something definitely needs to be done.
So the short answer is yes. We need something there. One life is too many.
Yeah, it doesn't even need justification. I mean, we don't even need a study. The study's been done. People have been hurt, killed, whatever. I mean, but so it's just yes. Just put the lights in there. Put a roundabout in there. Put something in there. Just slow the traffic down. Stop it now.
Ralph?
I'm in full agreement with putting a four-way stop there. I drive up and down that road all the time. For the last 14, 15 years, that's my route to take my kids to the Grimsby hockey arena, and it's almost literally impossible to go straight. So yes, I would put something there. We need a four-way stop.
Thank you. Okay, this time we're going to start with Kevin, and the question has to do with heritage. Are you pro-heritage, and if you are, how do you propose that we save our heritage buildings and our natural heritage features from developers who allow designated properties to decay through either intentional neglect or those who are willing to plow through significant woodlots? Would you like me to repeat that?
Yeah, please.
Are you pro-heritage, and if so, how do you propose we save our heritage buildings and our natural heritage features? And we'll stop there.
Yes, I'm pro-heritage. The way that we do this, in my opinion, is enforce the rules that we have currently. You know, instead of sitting back and let things decaying, because that's, you know, as I was talking to one individual in my ward, that's a trick that developers use so that it decays so far that it has to be torn down. I mean, here we are, again, out campaigning, and I see all kinds of notices for people that can't cut their grass and stuff, and the city's coming and finding them. So why aren't we doing something about these heritage homes?
No doubt I'm definitely pro-heritage and pro-protect our history. Grimsby has a lot of historic and heritage sites and homes. I think we should make a list of every single one of them, draw a circle around them, protect them, find ways to invest in them, get help and input from the community, and we should reinstate the Heritage Committee, because I think that's long overdue and should never have happened.
I think absolutely yes. I think we need to put some time limits in place for developers, especially developers who know the game. Like Kevin said, they know what they're doing. They buy the property, they stretch it out, they delay, with the hopes that the property is going to become so decayed that it either falls down from a high wind or a heavy rainstorm. We need to put time limitations on developers that are coming into our town, and we need to protect our heritage. And we need to tell these people, look, at the end of the day, yes, you bought the property, yes, you own it, but this is our town and you're going to follow our rules.
Cindy?
I think this is one of those things where we definitely need to be a little bit more proactive. If the heritage designation already existed, it will give people that are contemplating buying a home recognition that the heritage does exist. I think we also, though, have to recognize that we can't just come in and designate certain things heritage when people already live in those homes, and, you know, they have their rights too. I'm not talking about developers here, I'm talking about people that own a home. If I own my home and somebody came and tried to designate it heritage and put an onus on me as to say, you know, you can't do this to your home, you can't do that, I'd be a little upset. So I think we need to, you know, we have to make sure we look at both sides, and we have to make sure that we involve the people, the constituents, to ensure that, you know, we do it the right way. That's the most important part.
Thank you. The next question, we're going to start with Reg. And the question is, what is your position regarding pot stores in Grimsby, given that the government has given municipalities the ability to opt out? Or vice versa, I guess you could also, we got a second question that was very similar to that, you know, would you try to stop pot shops from opening in Grimsby? So tell us your position on that.
That's an interesting question, considering that on October the 17th, marijuana and pot in general will be legal throughout the country. However, I do have my own views on that. First of all, I think that medical marijuana does, without a question, have a place in our community. I've met numerous people while knocking on doors who use medical marijuana, and it really helps them. People with rheumatoid arthritis, one person had epilepsy, another person had sleeping disorders, there was all types of things. And they used medical marijuana, and it gave them a whole new lease on life. So from a medical marijuana perspective, yes, I have no problem with that. On the other side, the recreational marijuana, which will start on October the 17th, that's a different question. We're a small town, so wherever we put a shop in this town is going to be close to a school or a park or some community center, and I think we have to be very careful how we go about that. I believe the next council is going to have a decision on their hands because they have to make that decision by April whether or not we want shops, recreational shops in our town. And whatever we do, if we do agree with it, majority vote, whatever, I think we need to put them as far away from the center as possible if that's what we're going to do.
Ralph?
This is a new issue for all of us. Quite frankly, it's a very difficult question for all of us to answer. I too, when I was knocking on doors, and I met people that they need it, and it's their medication, and they need it, and we have to respect all points of view. Like Reg said, it's a delicate situation. I'm not for putting one in downtown Grimsby. I'm not one for putting one in neighborhoods. The only reason is because I'm not against it. I just don't know how we're going to control it. And until we have those answers, it's difficult for any four of us to answer those questions. We'll do our best as municipal politicians to adhere to the concerns of our residents, but that's going to be a difficult question, and we're going to have a general consensus on how we're going to deal with it.
I too have seen the benefits definitely of the medical marijuana. You know, Reg just mentioned a couple. Parkinson's was another one I was thinking of. I think this is one of those issues that there's going to be a lot of research that needs to be done. Colorado is already the legal, you know, we can look at what worked for them and what didn't. I've read some articles about some of the issues they've had, and you know, one of them specifically was saying, trying to warn Canada, you know, what's coming, be prepared. So there's definitely, you know, research that needs to be done about this. I am concerned about where, if we did put them, where we would put them. I hate to deny any type of commercial entity to begin with, because I think we need to grow our commercial base. But with this specific entity, it's definitely, it needs a lot of research and it needs a lot of insight into it. Thank you.
Kevin?
So what I've read, and my understanding of it is that we have a choice to opt in or opt out. If we opt out, then down the road we will be able to opt back in to get a facility if we want it. Now, my personal feelings is that I don't need a store here in Grimsby. I'm not saying that I'm against medical marijuana at all, but on the 17th, if you want it, you can order it online or be delivered right to your house. All we have to do is look at Niagara Falls. There was just a shooting the other day at one of these grow-up facilities. So I believe by having a store in Grimsby, it might just bring a little more crime. So you can order it online.
That question, thank you. The next question, we will start with Ralph, please. Grimsby has very little affordable housing and limited job opportunities. If you are elected, how will you attract young people to both live and work in Grimsby? And related to that, keep the youth that are here from leaving?
It's a very good question. And it's a very difficult question for most of us to answer because we haven't been at the controls of town hall. What's happening in our town and the increase of homes and costs of homes is because we're allowing developers to come in and sell their properties at very, very high costs because people are moving here from Oakville and Mississauga. They're treating our town as a bedroom community. They have no intention of living in those units that they're buying. They're renting them out, and thus this is increasing the cost of living in our town of Grimsby. Affordable housing is a very, very important and serious topic. We need to have a study on it. We need to discuss it because we need to keep our people in our town. Kids that are born here, my children are born here. I often say, I wonder 10 years from now when my kids are ready to get married and have families of their own, will they be able to live and afford a home in the town of Grimsby? I'm hoping they do because I love my town. We need to work on this topic. It is not easy. I have a lot of experience with government assistant housing and the percentage that we can ask from the region. We can put a task force in place and do our best to make it work for everybody in our town.
Thank you, Ralph. Your time is up. Cindy?
There's definitely not a significant amount of affordable housing in Grimsby, and that also includes rentals. There's not a lot of rentals in Grimsby. That's another issue which applies to this area. Something definitely needs to be done about this. I don't have the answer at this point. I definitely would look into it further because it's definitely an issue. Thank you.
Kevin?
Affordable housing, unfortunately, in the bottom here of Grimsby, below the escarpment, there isn't a lot of land left. I know in other municipalities, as I've heard at other debates, that there's certain rules put in place if you're doing development. 10% is put towards affordable housing. That's something we need to look at right off the bat. With that, the entire Golden Horseshoe, the entire Niagara region, prices have risen everywhere. It's unfortunate for a lot of families out there, a lot of young people. So now, obviously they have to take different approaches to buying a house. But as far as attracting them to Grimsby, I mean, there's no better community in the Niagara region than Grimsby. Being at the hospital today, talking to people there today, one of the biggest things that attracts people to Grimsby is the people. Everybody's very friendly, everybody's approachable, so I don't think we have a problem attracting them here. I just think they have a problem affording it.
Don't disagree with any of those answers for sure, but we definitely need more affordable housing here. I have been approached by a number of constituents in Ward 1, one on our street as a matter of fact, where this older lady is living with her sister and her husband, and she can't afford to move into her own house in Grimsby. I think we should work with the region, because the region will have to be involved in this, because it is a regional issue as well. And we should lobby the region for some funds. We should lobby the region to identify some areas and there doesn't have to be one pocket of areas for affordable housing. It could be all over the town. But I think we should investigate it, we should come up with a plan, and we should make more affordable housing available to folks in Grimsby without a question.
Thank you. The next question will start with Cindy. And the question goes like this. Mr. Barry said that no taxpayer money has been put into the biodigester. We have heard from other aldermen that some $6.2 million of taxpayer money is in. Could you give us your thoughts about what you would do about the biodigester issue? Starting with Cindy.
Surprise question.
This biodigester is a red herring. I'm sure they probably had good intentions when they started with this biodigester, but at some point, I'd really like to know where this idea for the biodigester came from too. But I'm speechless because I don't know how much money you keep throwing at something when it doesn't work. It just, I don't, whether we, move forward with it and part it out to recoup whatever millions of dollars have already been put into it. It definitely needs to be looked into, researched, and figured out the best way to address it that's going to cost the least amount of money to deal with it.
Kevin?
So the responsible thing to do is to look at the books. I know we spent a lot of money on it, but to look at the books and see if we can make a profit out of it. Now, my personal thoughts is that we don't have the expertise, we don't have the right people running it right now, and that we can't get enough product to it, it's not running 100%. So, put more money into it? No. It's time to cut our losses, if that's the case, and sell it.
Reg?
This is really a surprise question, Delight. Anyways, let me just say this. I think that the biodigester and everything surrounding it is rotten. And it's probably the biggest example, that's a pun, the biggest example of, this is probably the biggest example of bad governance, poor transparency, conflict of interest, this side of the Rocky Mountains. It's losing money, and we've had a few experts, some in this room, that have done the numbers, and it's probably losing the vicinity of about $1 million a year. Is that right, Rob, around there? It contravenes tax laws. It contravenes environmental laws, because I visited it and I've seen it. The property tax exemption should never have happened. The taxpayers' money has gone into it. We have no idea where it's gone. We're pretty sure it's not making a profit, because let's face it, if it was making a profit and there was good news with the biodigester, this would be the time to tell us, because they want to get re-elected. So if there's something good there, tell us now and get re-elected. But that won't happen because nothing good going on there. Anyways, there's still the $9 million that the broadband network received for the sale of broadband, and that went in there somewhere, we believe. And we know there's probably $14 million that has been invested in there. We have no idea what's happened to that. It's like Pandora's box, and I think it's time to open the lid and see what's inside.
And to Ralph.
The original thought process on the biodigester, from what I understand, was to generate recurring revenue. The recurring revenue is not happening. That's an example of, they tried to do something to make money. That's fine. You can make a mistake. Mistakes are allowed, but you have to own up to it. And you have to reach a point where you say, look, at the end of the day, is this in the best interest for the town of Grimsby? The obvious answer right now is no. Before we decide to scrap the biodigester, I think we need to do a full report. We don't know the numbers. None of us know, because we don't have access to the books. So it's difficult for us to talk about numbers because we don't know. But obviously they're in desperate need because they decided to stop paying taxes. So that's the first indication that they're in trouble. So if any of us, any four of us sitting up here today, and the other individuals, because I've attended those debates as well, we all have the same answer. To come out and scrap it right out is probably the best solution. But in order to be consistent with our message of transparency and consistency and reporting all facts to the people of the town of Grimsby, we will do our due diligence, we will provide that report, and together we will make a decision on what we're going to do with the biodigester.
Thank you. This next question is actually directed to someone who's not here tonight. So we're going to ask all of you to comment still. And there are actually three parts to the question, so I guess the easiest way for me is just to read the three parts of the question to you. Does the town of Grimsby subsidize an alderman for the Grimsby Farmers Market? And if so, is that not a conflict of interest? Do we know where the financial statements are of the farmers market? And I guess related to the first question, if it is privately owned, why is the town paying approximately $5,000 for the use of a fire truck at the market? Some of these are statements, some of these are questions. I guess we'll start with Kevin and just ask you to generally comment on that.
So, I don't know if any of you guys read social media, but there's been quite some posts about this as of late. So, we were told that, does the town subsidize the Grimsby Farmers Market? My reading of it is no. They have some volunteers that go and help set up. The fire department is there. They are getting paid. So if they're getting paid and it's coming out of the town, does that count as subsidizing? I think yes, it does. The financial statements, haven't seen them. I haven't asked for them, but I haven't seen them. And why is the town paying? I have no idea. I think that those are questions that should be asked. And we should find out, yeah, I get it, to help support local produce and so forth, but at what cost?
Reg?
Yeah, I've read the social media posts as well. I'm not surprised that question came up. It's kind of another one of those mysterious situations like the biodigester. We don't know exactly what's going on, and we don't have all the information to show. However, we do know one thing, that every single cost that happens at the farmer's market, be it the volunteers from the fire department, be it the volunteers from the public works that put the street together for the vendors, we know that there's got to be some cost attached to that. That's also on a regional road in our town, and someone is getting paid a fee from the vendors for using that particular piece of property. So why isn't some of that revenue going back to the town and going into our coffers? So there's a lot of questions, but I don't think we have a lot of answers, and I think we really need to find that out. I do personally believe, and this is a personal thought, that there's a huge conflict of interest going on here, and I think we need to get to the bottom of it and get it sorted out. Having said all that, I think the farmer's market is great outside of all that. I think that the majority of people want it, and so that's a totally different issue. But the politics behind it, we need to find out.
That is a topic that I'm not as familiar with, as I think most of you in this room are as well. It's pretty disturbing to hear a question asked about the credibility of the goings-on at our downtown Hamilton Farmers Market. It's quite bizarre that we have a question like that, because I would think that would be totally impossible to be happening in my town. The farmers market is a fantastic place. I like where the farmers market is. I don't want it moved. I want transparency for everything that's happening there. The farmers market, from what I understand, has been there now for many years, and the merchants of downtown Grimsby like where it is. I quite frankly like where it is. It gives everybody an opportunity to go there. But when you hear things like this, it really takes away from what we're trying to build in the town of Grimsby. We're trying to build a place where people can meet, where people can go with their families, where vendors can go and sell their wares and communicate and interact with people in their town. And for something like this that's happening, or supposedly allegedly happening, I think we need to get to the bottom of it, and we need to have full transparency. Again, another example of things being done in a way that should not be happening. It's unfortunate that we have the same response to a lot of these questions, but until we have changed the town of Grimsby, and it's unfortunate because there are some people from the town of Grimsby here, and they're gentlemen, and we're not trying to be negative, but when you hear questions like that, they're disturbing.
Unfortunately, your time is up. Cindy.
I am surprised that this has gone on as long as it has. I do feel that this is definitely a conflict of interest. I don't know why it has gone on as long as it has, but when you're involved in politics, you need to be transparent. You need to make sure you're on the up and up about everything. And if you're not sure of something, you question it, you ask the appropriate people. This is a very gray area that should not be happening. It definitely should not be happening. So I too support the farmers market. I actually enjoy it also downtown, but we need to clear up this issue for sure.
Thank you. That brings us to almost our last question. And we're going to start with Reg here. We're going to kind of change the track we're on here, and ask you to tell us what you cherish most about Grimsby.
Everything, except the development and the lack of transparency. We moved to Grimsby about 4 years ago. We moved from Milton and Mississauga. We moved here because we saw a quaint community nestled between the escarpment and the lake, with lots of green space. Was not so much traffic there even 4 years ago. So we thought we found that ideal home. I come from a place called Gander, Newfoundland, and I'm sure you've all heard about that place because of the 9/11 thing. So the people here also was a big draw for us. We came here, we walked the streets, and it was the most friendly town I think that we've been in, my wife and I, in this, not in the country, but certainly in Ontario. And we said, this is the place for us. This is the place for me to retire and write my book that I've been talking about a little bit. And so we moved here, and so we wanted to enjoy the beaches, enjoy the green space, enjoy the trails, enjoy the people. We just found so many boxes that we ticked that we just couldn't wait to get here. After we got here, of course, we found out all kinds of other little things going on, and that led me to be sitting behind this table tonight. So, but I still love Grimsby, and I want to do whatever I damn well can to keep it on track and try and keep it a nice, quaint village with lots of great community spirit, like just in Gander.
Thank you. We'll move the mic to Ralph, please.
My wife and I moved here 25 years ago, over 25 years ago. We bought our house in 1992 when we were a lot younger than we are now, and we have fond memories of having our children and raising them here. My backyard was a cherry orchard, and I have fond memories of my children playing there. My kids are growing up way too fast, so if I get choked up, it's sentimental to me when you ask me about the town of Grimsby, because it brings back so many memories. When we moved here, it was affordable for us. The town of Grimsby was an affordable place to buy a home. In other areas that we looked, it was just out of our price range. We fell in love with the town. We fell in love with the people that lived here. They were so friendly. We love the fact that we can walk up and down Main Street and buy peaches and plums and fresh produce and say hi to your neighbors and be cordially with everyone. The town of Grimsby is truly a special place. I understand that we need to prosper, and I understand that we need to prosper and grow together. We can't go back 10 years ago. It's going to be impossible. We can't do that. Life moves forward. But we need to have a balanced approach towards development. We need to challenge individuals that are coming here and wanting to build. We need to say to them in a very polite way, this is our town. If you want to build, you need to build conducive to the area in which you are building. And that's what we need in our town.
Thank you, Ralph. Cindy, what do you cherish most about Grimsby?
I've been here, my husband and I moved here 20 years ago, so we've been here quite a while also. Raised our two boys here. Definitely the green space. For me, that's first and foremost my love. Ability to be at the escarpment in 10 minutes or down by the lake in another 10 minutes. I mean, it's just a really unique area that we live in, that we're very fortunate to live in, but there has been changes along the way. Definitely the community, but everyone's mentioned, when we moved here 20 years ago, you couldn't get down the street without saying hi to everybody. I mean, it was just inevitable that you were just always talking to people. It's changed a little bit now. It's inevitable also. And change is inevitable, but we need to really ensure that we protect what we have here, because it really is special. And we're very fortunate to all live here.
Kevin, what do you cherish about Grimsby?
So I kind of touched on this earlier on the night. What I cherish about Grimsby is the people. There's lots of beautiful places in the world, but you don't always find the people that you find here in our town. Look at everybody that came out tonight. Everybody here cares about their town, they're passionate about their town, and they want to do something for their town. I mean, all we have to do is look at the DeSantis project down in our downtown. That was 8 stories, 9 stories. The people fought and had it reduced. Why? Because you guys all have a vision. And that's what we need to bring forward now, is the people's vision to move forward. So it's the people. It's the communicating with people, listening to what they have to say. There's history here. There's lots of things here, and like I said, and everybody's friendly.
Thank you. That actually brings us to the end, and I'm sorry if we couldn't get to all of your questions tonight, but time is ticking on. So we're going to ask each of the candidates, and we're going to give them 1 minute, which is a change from the original agenda. We're going to give them 1 minute now to pass the mic along and to say a few closing comments.
It'll be a soft minute, but it's not going to be 2.
Yes, we finished with Kevin, so that meant Reg started last time, so that means Ralph starts this time. Oh, pardon me. No, we started with the opening comments with Ralph, so Reg starts.
A minute?
Soft minute.
Yes.
You may want to, in order to get... They can hear me.
We were told 2 minutes on the agenda, so kind of threw off my notes a little bit here. I'll see if I can get through it in a minute. I'll talk really fast, just like we do back in Gander. Well, folks, we've come to the end of Grimsby's debates, and now it's time for you to decide which candidates will best represent you, your ward, and Grimsby. As part of my closing remarks, I would like to give you some feedback from a few people I met when I was campaigning. I met an elderly lady in a motorized wheelchair who had a near accident because of our sidewalks needed repairing. I spoke with many parents who told me they fear for the safety of their children because the streets needed a few speed bumps. I chatted with the mother of a special needs child group who wanted to play bocce ball, but the town wouldn't fund a few $1,000s. I listened to an elderly couple aged 83 who had complaints about the Public Works Department and about stormwater flooding their backyard. I met with numerous people who complained about oversized structures being built in their backyards. I spent an evening with owners of heritage properties who were concerned about the lack of funding to protect historical sites. I met people who lived only 100 feet from the lake but couldn't access the beach because of an old zoning bylaw. I spoke with residents who had grave concerns about congestion and overdevelopment. I spoke with many people who said they were leaving Grimsby because they didn't like what Grimsby was becoming. These are a few cases of how our town council have failed our citizens. While the taxpayers of Grimsby suffer, the council continue to waste millions of dollars on a biodigester and allow big developers to destroy the tranquility and character of our town. It's time for a change, and it's incumbent on you to select the best candidates in Ward 1 to help get Grimsby back on track. I had a quote, if you don't mind. Come on. In closing, I want to leave with a quote by one of my favorite authors. The backdrop of this story takes place in Paris during the French Revolution, when the people stormed the Bastille and took the city back from the bureaucrats. Sound familiar? Yes. Yeah. These are the opening lines. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the age of belief. It was the age of doubt. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was a spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities. Okay, folks, which of these do you want? Thank you.
That's what we're calling a soft wind. If you stretch it to 2, I don't think a big stick's going to come down. Go ahead, Kevin.
I don't think I'll be that long, Rich.
You have 2 anyway. I got 2, you got 2.
As we move into the future, our elected officials need to listen to the residents of Grimsby and respond to their needs and their concerns. Today, I have heard about many things: infrastructure improvement, bike lanes, inter-town transportation, protecting and improving our shoreline, just to name a few. I've heard about safety for our children, such as speed bumps, additional signage, additional sidewalks, really anything that may or will make life safer for our children. As we move into an ever-changing society, our children become more and more at risk due to the technological advancements. Although education is our best tool, we still need to be proactive in our approach instead of reactive. I've heard about the intensification. Out of the hundreds of people that I've talked to, again, only 2 people in my ward. Yes, 2 people like what has happened in the West End. All we need to do is look at the downtown core and the parking and traffic issues there. Now, increase those issues by 95 to 180 cars per day, just for one project already approved. The situation is a mess, and soon will be in the hands of our future government to fix it, if possible. Growth will happen, but it needs to be responsible. To all the residents of Grimsby, change is never an easy thing, but when we, the people of Grimsby, look around and realize or decide that we are not happy with the past decisions and direction we are heading, we at least have a choice: to continue to drive down the current path or change direction. I am running to change direction, and to do this, I need your support and your vote. So starting October 10th to the 22nd, when you vote, vote accountability, vote for transparency, vote for a change in direction. Vote for someone who you know will work not just for the town, but more importantly, someone who will work for the citizens of Grimsby. Vote Kevin Ritchie. Thank you.
I just want to make a couple quick points. Basically, thank you first off to the people involved in arranging these events, these debates. It's been a lot of work for them, and it needs to be recognized. So thank you, everyone involved. We're not reinventing the wheel here. It's pretty simple. You know, everyone in this community, we need to work together to recognize what we want to bring forward and what's important to us. Everyone here, we're pretty much very similar and on the same page. It's just a matter of communicating your points and making sure that, you know, you get out there and you vote. I mean, that's vital, and it's not only the people here. You people need to contact other people and say, please get out and vote, because that's vital. The other thing is, you know, we just need to make sure we do the research before we make any major decision. Some of these decisions that previous councils have made, the proper research wasn't done, and the reliance may be on sources that weren't that reliable. So vital research, vital. It is. It's everything. And, you know, it's a matter of looking what's worked and not worked in other areas, in other small towns. So I think, you know, we're all on the same page here as far as wanting to do the best for Grimsby. So thank you for coming out tonight.
The next 48 months will shape the future of our town for years to come. Upon my election of Alderman of Ward 1, I will commence with the formation of a community council to meet on a quarterly basis. These meetings will include citizens and organizations to bring forth new ideas and to propose resolutions. This will contribute to the overall betterment of our town. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Better Grimsby. The individuals who served on this committee should be commended for their efforts, for organizing these events, because it's important that each and every one of you have the opportunity to meet the individuals that are knocking on your doors and leaving things in your mailbox, and for you to make an informed decision. I strongly believe here today that any four of us that are elected to the town council will be excellent choices. I hope that you vote for me, but regardless of the outcome of this election, I feel very confident and I feel very strongly that any four of us would serve in a fantastic capacity. I want to take this opportunity to thank my wife and my children for their support. Without them, this campaign would not have been possible. Politics is a tough business, and I've gained a deep appreciation for the election process. My profession as an insurance broker for over 30 years has prepared me for this challenge. There is absolutely nothing that I haven't done in my career that I won't be able to handle at Town Hall. Deciphering through contracts, debating, negotiating, having meetings, and taking people to account for decisions that they made is what I would do on a daily basis. Now, I have a question for all of you, and it's a yes or no answer. Are you ready for change at the town of Grimsby? Yes. Then let us begin. If we work together, there is nothing that we can't accomplish. Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you to all of you here tonight for your questions, and I realize we couldn't ask all of them, but we did try. Thank you to the candidates for their answers and to giving us food for thought. To the media, News Now is here tonight. Thank you for coming out. The event has been taped. The previous ward debate and the mayoral debate, the three ward debates previous to this at least, are now on YouTube, and you can watch them there. And I believe the mayoral debate is in the process of being put onto YouTube as well. Advance Voting, as they said, starts on October 10th. You should have received your pins in the mail already, so you should have the paperwork and should just be waiting now for October 10th. Or if you can't vote electronically or don't want to, of course, you can physically go to Town Hall on October 22nd. You are more than welcome to remain behind, by the way. We're not trying to push you out here at all. I'm sure the candidates would love to talk to you, to answer any questions that didn't get asked of them already. If you want to leave your name and a way to contact you with the panel, please feel free to do so. If you have some questions that you would like directed to the candidates, we will send it along to them and have them answer you. Before we leave, though, I would like to just end with an observation made by someone else. I wish I was brilliant enough to have said these words. And it goes like this. It says, "To make democracy work, we must be a nation of participants, not simply observers. One who does not vote has no right to complain." Good night and safe travel.